All right, that green light means go, which means we're go for talking about our recovery process for the GNX Kendrick Lamar album. You are now listening to. Gotcha. No, good morning, everyone. We're back for another week of the TSA Hoop Show, brought to you by the Sports Affiliation Network. And you know what it is, your boy JR. It is still crisp, a little bit more moist. It looks like that cold weather broke out here in San Diego. So a little bit warmer today, a little bit wet outside. And we're here back talking about hoops this week on this beautiful Sunday morning. And if you are nonetheless on a recovery process of a wild week that's happened over the last week with the NBA games, NBA Cup games, then like me, you're up wide awake trying to figure out what in the world happened to us this week. A lot of things have been great. A lot of things have been awful. A lot of things have made no sense. And we're going to try and make sense of it today here on the TSA Hoop Show. And of course, before we go any further, we want to thank our sponsors, Drafters Fantasy app, where you can get your deposit match up to $100 by using the code TSA Bets. You can go on to the Drafters app where, like me, you can make your daily fantasy bets. You can make your daily live bets, pick 'em bets across all sports, across all 30 teams in the NBA. Picking games like whether LaMelo Ball is going to drop at least 40 points because he hit that 50 burger last night. Yes, right. So make sure you go over to the Drafters app. That's TSA Bet to get your deposit match up to $100. And with that being said, what in the world is the NBA right now? I don't know if it's the effect of the NBA Cup teams actually getting into gear a lot sooner than normal. The effect of players not being available on respective teams. I mean, we've sort of revisited and rehashed that sort of argument and talked about players being injured, being out. Luckily, some players have returned to play this week, and it has positively affected the outcome of some of these games, which is always great to see. You want to see teams 100%. You want to see teams giving their effort throughout the whole season. But, wow. The Warriors, ladies and gentlemen, are at the top of the West right now. With that loss from Klay Thompson, I personally put the Warriors at the middle, kind of lower the pack, because I didn't think that Kerr would have guys like Buddy Hield ready by this time of year to be able to take over. And these guys have won enough games. They pushed it enough, minus a loss last night to San Antonio. Welcome back, Victor Wembanyama. They have pushed the envelope to be at the top of the West, which is saying a lot. I mean, it's still a tight race out there. The top 4 or 5 teams have at least double-digit wins. Dallas coming with the win against Denver the other night, and Denver coming back and smacking the Lakers. It's a weird trifecta like that going on right now. Just the general craziness of the West right now is absolutely insane. And then out East, somehow, some way, as we're looking and updating the standings right now, Washington is still unable to get a win. They've lost 10 in a row. Sixers somehow survived and get a win last night, so they're still not the worst team, but they're the third worst team in the NBA right now. So I don't know, probably playing for a lottery pick, which goes to the Thunder. We'll get to that later. Um, East is definitely weird because it's got Philadelphia and Indiana there at the bottom outside of even the play-in tournament looking in. And you got a team like Detroit. You got a team like Chicago, who we said might surprise us a little bit. They're in the mix for play-in tournament. Still sub 500, but nonetheless, team just in the mix right now. And somehow, some way, the Bucks have played enough crappy teams and won enough games in a row on a 4-game winning streak in order to bring us back here. They are in a playoff spot. Shout out to the Bucks for finding a way to figure out how to beat the teams that need to get beat. I repeat, beating the teams that need to get beat. Doesn't matter if you're the worst team in the league or the best team in the league. You play the team in front of you and you're a professional basketball team. You do your job. You get to the playoffs. We are here now. Checking the comments right now. Hey, shout out to JC. JC, if you guys don't know, he's running our Thursday night and Monday night live watch games. So make sure you go follow him if you want to get some good football action there. I know some of you guys are up early for some of the early games right now, but you are currently tuned into the TSA Hoop Show where we're talking about hoops. And again, craziness of the NBA right now. We're just going to go ahead and recap the standings real quick just to let you guys know where we're at in case you are like 60-70% of the rest of the fans out there with that tune in after the All-Star break. So let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. Again, Cleveland's still at the top. Their lone loss coming to Boston last week. We knew that was a train full of steam right there, blasting ahead throughout the league. There were points where they were down double digits and ended up winning games, the Cavs, and they ended up coming against a Boston team that brought out all the stops. Still no Kristaps Porzingis, but Boston managed to get a win out there. So it goes 1-2 Boston, 3 Orlando Magic. Sort of not a surprise as the Orlando Magic have been doing pretty well as of late. They finally righted the ship without Paolo Banchero being out 4 weeks there with an injury. The might of Franz Wagner, just absolutely amazing. One of the two losses that the Lakers had suffered in the last couple of games. Franz Wagner with that last second three-pointer, the step back three-pointer over the Los Angeles Lakers in order to get one of the 2 wins that's helped propel this Magic team into the double-digit category for the 3rd spot. And of course, New York still hanging around there at 9-7. We just mentioned Milwaukee earlier. We'll get to these other teams eventually because we're talking about cold takes since it's cold weather up here. In teams that are currently cold and losing out. We got to talk about those teams too because we don't reach them enough. But over in the West, just real quick, Golden State, as I mentioned not too long ago, suffered their first loss against San Antonio, but sitting at the top, tied with Oklahoma City at 12-4. Of course, that head-to-head and conference play makes all the difference. So as far as the tiebreaker, so right now the tiebreaker, Golden State would be the number 1 overall seed. Bet you didn't think that you would be hearing that, especially this early on in the season. Oklahoma City right there, 12-4, did not play yesterday, but we'll be coming back to that later today. Houston, how did you do it? Coming from out of nowhere, and I know it's still early on in the season. We're a little bit more than 20% of the way through the season right now, but sitting there at 12-6. And then, of course, the Lakers, who lost against the Denver Nuggets, which are right behind them, suffering their second loss, still sitting there at 10 wins, 10-6 over there in the West. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Teams that we did not think would be doing any more than fighting for a play-in are sitting there at the top of the West, and some teams got to figure it out right now. I mean, Minnesota needs to figure it out. They need to figure out what they're trying to do with this Julius Randle point forward thing. Reports of Dante DiVincenzo, who was just traded for the Knicks, who doesn't seem to be completely working out with Minnesota, is on the trading block again. And I know there are teams that would definitely love a gritty defensive guard on the wing. There's some teams that need that. Lakers. To bolster their playoff chances. So that's a team that we definitely need to figure out. Again, Dallas now finally riding their ways. They've been without Luka, who's been out with an injury, of course, so they've just been behind the play of Kyrie Irving and company. No disrespect to the other 12 players on that team, but from a media perspective, that's what it is. Dallas at that 9 seed that went on this weird losing streak, and they were like close losses. Especially one of the weirdest losses was against the Utah Jazz, who is another team that won last night. Shout out to my coworker Brian. I told you not to mess with Utah at home. I told you. But Dallas Mavericks, now on a 4-game winning streak, trying to figure it out, trying to right that ship. They have a winning record, but they sit at the 9th seed right now. Stop me if you've heard this before. Western Conference team, over 500, still can't get into the playoffs. It is what it is. Let's see who else we need to talk about today. San Antonio Spurs, again, they got their first win with Victor Wembanyama back. It's not their first win overall in a while. They're on a 3-game winning streak, but Victor Wembanyama was out 3 to 4 games. So if you guys had him in your fantasy team, like I had Jokic on my team, for some Wemby wasn't playing, Jokic wasn't playing. That division just wasn't sitting right with anyone. So good to have those guys back. Sad that Jokic had to come back against my squad, but that's for another time. That's a team that currently isn't set up to go to the playoffs, but is definitely set up to win. Again, you have a veteran in Chris Paul. You have Barnes there, who's a veteran, who's been on championship level teams, who's been in playoff teams. And then you have the crew of Vassell, Sohan, and Wemby that's coming off of it. I mean, you got guys that are willing to put in the effort to win, and that's shown the case. San Antonio at a 3-game winning streak right now. That's a team that, like Dallas, is figuring it out. You may see them in the play-in, but until we collectively figure out what's happening to these teams like the Sacramento Kings, who are healthier but just can't seem to figure out how to put together the right combination of offense and defensive schemes in order to win late. I mean, the Sacramento Kings is a team that's one of the higher scoring teams, scoring at a clip of about 115 points, but they just don't defend well, which is weird to say for a team. And I know that losing veteran leadership in the locker room can change the dynamic of a team and the mentality and how to play. But this is a Mike Brown-led team. And Mike Brown-led teams typically don't allow that many points. I know the league is changing. We talked about that last week. We talked about the dynamic of the ways that teams are shooting 3-point shots and so on and so forth. But where the Sacramento Kings sit in respect to how they performed over the last 2 seasons doesn't make sense. And I say 2 seasons because you had season 1 where they were completely healthy, push, and had a great position in the playoffs. Now, the next season where they weren't that healthy going down the stretch, sort of limped into that play-in spot and then just fed it out. So, again, with the theme of what's going on for this season, everyone gets healthy, everyone gets better. And Sacramento's not riding that trend right now. So that's definitely a team that we need to watch and see if they figure it out come January. Because not a lot of things get done in December, and we have the focus on the NBA Cup, which we'll get to in just a few moments. But Sacramento's definitely one of those teams that we need to figure out. What are they doing? Okay, so moving on from them. A team that's definitely been fun to watch, has been stealing some games from some teams, and teams just can't figure them out. The Portland Trailblazers. Portland Trailblazers are one of those teams where they weren't one of the worst teams in the league. They just played against better personnel, had a lot younger crew. Their center is an on-again, off-again rebounding machine, DeAndre Ayton. And I think those guys are just now figuring out the next level of how they'll play. Guys like Shaedon Sharpe coming into full bloom. We got Anthony Simons coming back. I mean, the team is definitely pushing forward. They don't have a winning record, but they managed to beat pretty quality teams. And we'll mention who those teams are and everything like that and our power rankings. Of course, you guys need to check out our rankings, speaking of, on sportsaffiliation.com. You can just go look up NBA, or you just look up TSA Hoops NBA Power Rankings. And we got our bi-weekly. Basically, they come out every 2 weeks at this point right now because it's a slow season. Rankings of how we think teams are doing. And lastly, over to the West, one big question mark. Somehow this team managed to go from somewhat people believing that they have all the chops to be able to compete in the West and not just be a playing team to the worst team in the West. The New Orleans Pelicans are now sitting at 4-13, y'all. 4-13. They lost 4 games in a row. They cannot figure out how to get past themselves. They are not healthy, losing just about everyone except for Brandon Ingram, on again, off again. Zion Williamson comes on, comes out, goes off again. DeJounte Murray, everyone was talking about that big trade, and it looks like Atlanta won the trade at this point. They've not been performing well. They've not been scoring well. They've not been defending well. This team is a mess, and I hope that they figure it out soon, not just for their own sake, but for the city's sake, because they have not had great production out of their basketball franchise in some years. Not since before Anthony Davis got traded, and that is a long time, y'all. New Orleans needs to figure it out. Moving on to the East, least in the East. Philadelphia 76ers, we talked about them for the last 2 weeks. I'm tired of talking about them in a negative sense. Jared McCann, hey, great draft pick for these guys. And he's definitely making the most of his time with Joel Embiid sitting out. Let's not sugarcoat it. With Joel Embiid sitting out, Paul George not being able to carry the team on again, off again with his ability to score, Tyrese Maxey now being out. Not rookie of the year, but definitely in the top 3 right now as far as votes go. You're sitting on the wrong team in order to get those votes. I just want to put that out right now. Great kid, scoring at a high clip. Got a 30 burger the other day. Not rookie of the year. Sorry. Toronto, we never expected much out of Toronto, so we're skipping past them. But Indiana, hello guys. Can Tyrese Halliburton come out to play? Please, someone, if you have him in your fantasy team right now, you might either want to bench him or trade him right now, because despite all the hype that he brought to attention for himself the season before, I don't know what happened during the summer. I don't know if what happened on Team USA affected him negatively, but his production is absolutely paltry. This team is not even close to sniffing a playing game right now. They are sitting at 6-10. They're on a 3-game losing streak right now. No one can really explain the disappearing act of Tyrese Halliburton. No one can explain to me the lackluster performance of the Indiana Pacers. No one can tell me why a Rick Carlisle team right now is giving up. Let me look this up because I want to make sure that this is accurate. 120 points a game. $120 points a game. That's a lot of points. That means you can just walk in there and, I don't know, maybe LeBron James Jr. could score on these guys, and that's saying a lot. This team was a team that used to be top 10, top 5 in season prior in defensive rating. Where did the defense go? Where did the offensive production go? This team was one healthy player away from sniffing an Eastern Conference Finals victory. I mean, I don't get why in these first 20 games of the season, that's a good chunk of the season, y'all, within these first 20 games, some of these teams that have the chops, the wherewithal, the game plan, everything laid out, the coach, the personnel, what have you, to go from something nice, sparkly, and performing really well to performing like a beater car. If you guys can explain that in the comments below, please hit me up. You know where to find me at 4F Apollo on X, formerly known as Twitter, and leave your comments below here on the YouTube channel for the sports affiliation under the TSA Hoop Show. We would gladly appreciate it. Again, if you guys are tuning in this early morning before your football game, this is the Sports Affiliations TSA Hoop Show. It's your boy JR. We are talking cold teams, cold records, trying to figure out how to fix some of these teams, maybe even fix some of your fantasy woes like I'm facing right now. Speaking of fantasy woes and daily fantasy information, if you follow us at the Sports Affiliation, you should also be following some friends of mine. I just want to go ahead and shout out at Coach Craig, who likes to post up his daily fantasy sheet for both football and basketball. If you ever want to try to get some information on who to trade, who you're wondering if they're hot right now, make sure to follow him and his YouTube channel, Coach Craig Sports. That's CoachCraig, like my man from Friday Sports, SPORTS. Make sure to go follow him if you want to get that information. And if you want to get some good takes, make sure to follow me. I can guide you to the appropriate chat to where we get our daily bets, like from the Parlay Ninja, the Bet Parlay Ninja, and Mr. Gambling 400. Rip, if you're out there and you're listening to this, your bucks are absolutely making me sweat right now. Also, shout out to my on again, off again guest that likes to come on at Hot Take City. George, if you're out there, you're listening to this, I hope that your Knicks do somewhat well, except for against my Lakers, man. So let's get back into it. Players that are absolutely tearing it up right now. No, actually, here's what we're going to do. We got 6 games today. And I know you guys are trying to figure out what game to tune into. We're going to break down a couple of these games a little bit for these teams that have losing records and if it's possible that they're going to win today. So let's get to it. Let's get to that. And then if you guys have any questions in the chat, you can definitely post them up. We'll get those answered. For those of you guys that are listening to this on Spotify, which is where we're located, we'll basically address those verbally on the questions being asked. And if you guys have any questions later, make sure you guys tune in, send us a message. We'll address those questions in the following week. We'd love to answer your fantasy and basketball questions. So let's get right to it. 6 games today. Minnesota at Boston. It's the morning game. Morning tip-offs at 12:30. I believe that time is Pacific, so that's starting in just under 2 hours right now. Washington at Indiana, followed behind that. Dallas at Miami, and the Clippers at the Sixers, both tipping off at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's 12. That's your noon game there out. Care the one. That's your 6 p.m. game. Sorry, out east. Toronto at Cleveland. Brooklyn at Sacramento. Okay, so as far as games that I would be watching today personally, the first one, of course, is going to be Dallas at Miami. 2 teams that have had somewhat of a storied history as far as the playoffs and the finals are concerned. None of the players involved on either team have been involved in either of those championship teams, but it is nice to think about when thinking about Dallas going to Miami because of that storied history right there. But Miami, of course, is the last team in the East sitting at a guaranteed playoff spot in the 6th position. Dallas at that 9th position. Again, the Dallas is doing well. Again, they're on that streak. Miami is finding certain ways to win here and there against the teams that are just in front of them. And they're looking to right their ship as well. I mean, they're only 6-7. They're a bunch of games behind as far as the schedule is concerned, whether the game got flexed out or it's just a scheduling issue right now. But for the most part, that's going to be a fun game today.
Hi, Daddy.
Good morning. And for those of you that are hearing that voice right now, this is the sound of my daughter who is just looking like the basketball player that she is. I'm going to say hi to everyone. You can say hi.
Wait, Mama.
Other games that you want to watch today, that's definitely going to be one of them. We're going to see how Dallas is continuing to do. I believe, let's see who's available on that game today. Let's see, Miami's favorite 3.5 at home, overs 22.5. Teams are both scoring at a pretty good clip at about 112. So the over is very safe there. Let's see here. That game.
Hi, Daddy.
Injury report still has Luka Doncic out. He's going to be out until at least the end of the month. Center Dilo Galford is a game time decision. He might play. Dante Exum, who's on again, off again, coming in and helping out Dallas, is listed as out. On the Miami side, looks like one big player out, Terry Rozier. Of course, it's game time decision. So may return today, but we will see. So that is it for the injury report for that game. I'm taking Dallas to win that game, not by double digits, probably by 6, even though Miami is favored at home at 3.5. We're talking about Miami's ability to defend right now, which is actually pretty decent. Their opponents only score 110, while Dallas is currently on this streak, scoring 116. So that's your difference right there. Dallas to win that game at Miami, not in a landslide, but definitely look for the availability of Kyrie Irving to be able to score. You know that he can do it. He can set guys up, and that's who I'm picking for that game today. The other game that I would believe you guys should watch is the Clippers at Philadelphia. Not because it's Philadelphia, big market team, but because the Clippers are finding ways to win. And as far as the standings are concerned, they also sit at the last spot in as for a guaranteed playoff spot. They also have 10 wins, 10-7 right now, on a 4-game winning streak. Now, in that 4-game winning streak, let's talk about the teams that they have beaten. Okay. Now the Jazz is one thing, because they beat the Jazz on their home court. Playing the Utah Jazz for some reason for some top teams is a very dangerous thing to do at Utah. Whole different conversation though. They've also beat the Warriors and the Magic. Okay, so again, we mentioned the Magic as a 3rd seed out there in the East. Jamal Mosley has had that team playing at a very great clip. Again, without Paolo Banchero, beat them in Los Angeles. So again, these are home games that they've won. Also beat the Warriors by 3 the other night at home in Los Angeles. Really big wins because, again, we mentioned the Warriors being at the top. So this team is coming up and they're beating top-seeded teams. It's on again, off again. So they're still learning how to play, but it's amazing what they're doing all without Kawhi Leonard. Definitely a team to see how they win today, because they've won against teams that they're supposed to beat. And they've beaten this Sixers team before. Okay? Was not a surprise. They're set to win. But it's just more of a question of if they can continue to do that or if teams are going to continue to catch on. But watch that game today because we want to see if this team can continue to shoot at a high clip. This team right now in the Los Angeles Clippers, not that big of an offense again when you've lost an all-star in your offensive production and you're highly dependent on James Harden to be one of your bigger scorers. And definitely will deplete your offensive production. But this team also defends very, very well. They only allow 107 points. It's so weird to say that. 100 only allow, and then say 100 for anything. But 107 points right now is what they're allowing for their opponent's games. We're gonna take a quick break right now. Gonna get this all situated. We'll be right back with you guys. In just one moment. All right, we take coffee breaks here too at the TSA Hoop Show. All right, right back into it. You guys got your slate today. You guys got your 2 games today. What we haven't done in a while is try to talk about what we're putting down, what we're looking at as far as bets are concerned. We just haven't had the time to do it. Honestly, we've been so busy talking about so many other crazy things, trying to fix the NBA, trying to figure out the trends that are happening right now. If they're fake, if they're just a blip on the radar, if they're actually a thing. But take a look at the NBA, see what fun stuff is out there today. Players that are, I mentioned this earlier, we were going to go into it, but players that are performing well right now. I'll pull this up here in just a second. Checking the comment section right now to see if there's anyone out there that has any questions, comments, or concerns about anyone on their fantasy squad, like I have been with Chet Holmgren being out. Again, absolutely amazing what OKC is doing. Mark Daniels still getting his team to play a little bit smaller. Welcome back Isaiah Hartenstein from injury, who's been doing pretty well since coming back from his injury that kept him out throughout the season. All right. If you got Giannis Antetokounmpo, his PRA is definitely high and up there. Leading the league right now, 32.4 points a game. Great stat wise if you're holding him in fantasy. Horrible for the Bucks if that's what it takes to win a game. That is a basketball. We have been talking about enough. The Atlanta Hawks and Dyson Daniels. Dyson Daniels of the Atlanta Hawks, who's leading in steals per game at 3.2 steals per game. Field goal percentage 70. Oh, that's Daniel Gafford. Okay, I got a stat fed to me. It was the wrong stat. Dyson Daniels, absolutely crazy what he's been doing for the Atlanta Hawks right now. And we mentioned that trade with New Orleans for DeJounte Murray, and Dyson Daniels was part of that trade coming from New Orleans, sort of packed in the backcourt last season, was doing pretty decent. But wasn't doing as well or in the media as much this season. And so it's absolutely crazy to see that this guy goes from, again, middle of the pack, not really talked about, to possibly in the conversation for most improved player. And I don't know if you can say that a lot given the fact that it's not that so much that he improved, but that he was given the room to flourish. And that's a player that I think we need to continue to keep our eyes on this year, not just because of the trade, but because of how well it's done for. Atlanta Hawks. Sorry about that, y'all. A little bit of family emergency at the second. So again, we're talking about teams to watch. Atlanta's definitely one of them. The games to watch today, we let you know who those are. If you guys are actually going to turn into that Cleveland game, it's probably because you're a Cleveland fan or because you're desperate for Toronto to get a win. Toronto's not getting that win today. Sacramento, Brooklyn, definitely, again, interesting to watch because we need to figure out what's going on with Sacramento. But as far as the players are concerned, Giannis, Dyson Daniels are two of them. And LaMelo Ball and the Charlotte Hornets is a very interesting story. A few nights ago, Charlotte's playing Brooklyn in the tightly contested game. The Hornets end up losing by, I think it was 2 or 3. Down the stretch of the last 3.5, LaMelo Ball gets sat. Now, if you guys have been getting the ticker, getting the breaking news, little notifications on your phones from the apps across all apps of whatever you get your sports information from, LaMelo Ball dropped 50 the other day in a loss. It's going to be interesting to see what the Hornets do down the stretch over these next 4 or 5 games as far as how they're going to utilize LaMelo Ball, because it looks like they're having a Milwaukee problem. They have the offense there in players and him especially, but they're not producing wins out of it. So if Charles Lee decides again to either, as he said in the interview, that he was riding the hot hand at that time, that LaMelo wasn't the one that got them there to that point. And I get that. But if this is looking a little bit more like offense isn't cutting it, and you need to try to figure out how to trade offense for defense, and it's going to be interesting to see if LaMelo starts to get subbed out in certain sets in order to try to maintain leads for Charlotte. Charlotte right now is sitting at right outside the play-in position in the East. They're sitting at the 11th spot, right behind those Brooklyn Nets that they lost to. They suffered another loss last night. Again, that 50 burger by LaMelo Ball. So from a fantasy perspective, it's amazing, but from a team perspective, not so great. And if you have LaMelo Ball, continue to ride him, because as far as it looks right now, the league definitely is predicated more on having a high scorer like that in order to stay relevant in the league. But also, you might want to start looking at how to trade him off your team, because I believe that if the Charlotte Hornets are in a playoff position or a position to get a playoff spot, and the difference is between them defending well down the stretch or not, you might see LaMelo Ball start getting pulled earlier from these games. One other player that we need to talk about, third year, I believe, Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham. Sir, I don't know who said what to him. I don't know if it is a coaching change, but we're finally starting to see how well this kid can be when he's been given the keys to the kingdom to the car to be able to drive this team, this Detroit Pistons team, who has been, it's no longer surprising what Detroit is doing. They're sitting at the 9th spot, 7-11. It's no longer surprising what Detroit is doing. Yeah, they suffered a few losses, but they've had some very great wins against teams like the Lakers, against teams like, let's see here. Yeah, but they lost a lot. No, but they've beaten, again, that close loss against Boston still resonates in my mind. Sixers, nah. They've beaten Brooklyn once before. They beat Atlanta, who we keep talking about. They came back and got their get back in an NBA Cup game, and we'll get to that in a second, against Miami. They've beaten the lowly Raptors. And, of course, they beat up on the Wizards. So they've gotten wins against teams that they're supposed to get wins against, which has been the difference in between them showing growth or not. And this was the worst. This was the second worst team. No, this was the worst team in the NBA last season. So going from where they were at to where they are now, hey, it's amazing what a coaching change, what a change in perspective, what a season will do, at least to humble you, to get you to hone in and step up. So even with the addition of Tobias Harris, this team has not lost a step in offensive production and doing really well. And Cade Cunningham is that player to watch. All right, so we're 40 minutes into this show. No questions out there. So we're just going to go ahead and get to this last part of our segment. The NBA Cup is continuing its group play as the season starts to unfold, as we start to get into the winter holidays. Can't forget two big things. Group play is still going on. It happens every Tuesday and Friday. And there's only one team that's qualified and one team that's been eliminated. The team that's qualified so far is the Golden State Warriors, who won on a loss of the Denver Nuggets to the Dallas Mavericks. So it's not that the Warriors won their group, but that they qualified for the tournament. Let's keep that in mind, okay? There's a difference. They did not win their group. In order to win your group, you're going to need at least 4 wins. So they're going to need to continue on Tuesday coming up in order to win that group. But only 8 teams qualified for this, so just keep that in mind. So that's the only team that's qualified right now, head of each group. You got Group A, East A, Magic and New York tied at 2. Milwaukee, who we say that's been coming on lately, and Detroit, we mentioned them, Group B, also tied at 2. Atlanta and Boston. Remember, Boston is at 2-1 because Atlanta beat Boston at Atlanta. Okay? Shocked everyone. Play of Dyson Daniels, absolutely phenomenal. But Atlanta sits at the top of that group at 2-1 because they own the tiebreaker over Boston right now. And somehow, someway, because of that one loss against Boston, also an NBA Cup game, Cleveland sits at 1-1, third in the Group C East group. So a team that is leading the NBA right now may not make the play-in tournament. Mind blowing. On the West side, Houston at the top of their group at 2-0. They're the only 2-0 team in that group. Group B, Lakers at the top of their group at 2-0, won both of their games. And then again, Group C, already qualified, Golden State Warriors. Dallas Mavericks behind them at 2-1. Denver is not mathematically eliminated. They still have other teams to play within their group in order to try to qualify for at least that wild card berth. But Dallas right now has the ownership over that if the two teams were to try to have the same record in that group. It sounds like we're talking about Olympic basketball right now, and teams are kind of playing like it. But if you go and you check out the standings right now, and the reason why we have to talk about that is because outside of Los Angeles, the teams that are qualifying for this NBA Cup look a little bit different from last year. I mean, last year we had in the finals Indiana versus Los Angeles, which turned out to be a horrible game in the second half. Just absolutely horrible. You had New Orleans, which was basically right there last year, that is nowhere near. Actually, they got eliminated from this. So we're not even able to talk about them in comparison to last year. So it's going to be very interesting to see the teams that qualify for this thing because they're actually pushing. Teams are doing really well as far as being on a scoring clip. The group that the Warriors are in is one of the highest scoring groups out there. A lot of teams there in the 300s that are qualifying for this. And it's interesting because these games that didn't seem to matter last year because it was new, people didn't really understand it or the significance of it. But now that they saw a team hoist up a trophy, it seems that they're pushing more for this. And I'm thinking that in this year, we're not going to see some of the same teams represented in the Final Four. I'm going to throw out a take right now. I think Detroit qualifies, and I think Detroit sits there at that is one of the semifinal teams. I think we get Detroit. I think we get Orlando. We get Golden State and San Antonio sitting there at 1-1. They're still not eliminated. They still may qualify for this. They could be that other team for a Cup qualifier. It'll be interesting with everything that's going on with that team. You know, Pop's dealing with health issues. He had the minor heart attack. The heart attack, I believe it was a heart attack or a stroke. And the team was trying to win without him. They're having Wembanyama kind of come in and out because of injury. They're learning how to play. It will be interesting to see that team kind of come into some sort of tournament play and win it out in the Spurs, because it seems like whatever team that Chris Paul is on, that team ends up in the playoffs in some form or fashion. So to do it early on and then to say, hey, we might just be able to compete in the playoffs if we make it. I think this would be great experience for the entire team to have something like this, which is one of the big positives of the NBA Cup. So that's that for what we have for our takes for this week. Not much else really to discuss as far as what's going to be happening this week and next week. Want to give you guys a heads up. We are going to be taking a holiday break here at TSA Hoops to be able to enjoy our time with our friends and family. So we won't be seeing you next week. We will be seeing you the week afterwards, which will have a lot to talk about. In between that time, what's going to be happening is we're going to be posting up our tickets. We're going to be posting up our takes. We're going to be posting up our power rankings. If you have any questions as far as sit 'em stardom for your fantasy teams, make sure to follow us here at the Sports Affiliation. Make sure to follow me on X, etc. We'll be able to answer your questions as best as we can, see how you guys are measuring up. Teams, guys that you should swap out for your dailies, etc., etc. We're also going to be posting up small little videos and clips of things that are going on that day, so that way we can keep you reminded that on Sundays, 7:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, you guys can sit your butts down, get yourselves warmed up with a nice cup of coffee, hot chocolate, or if you're really about that action, your mimosa, getting up early and ready for whatever's going on that Sunday. We want to get you guys up and geared and ready. We're going to be doing that throughout the week for the next couple of weeks, and then we will be seeing you again. Again, that's going to be not the first of the month, but December 8th, okay? Same time. So that's just a couple of things that are going on right now. I guess we did mention it at the beginning of the season. We should be updating you guys with how we're doing in fantasy, because we talk about it a lot, but we don't really get around to it. And right now, in our TSA Hoops League threatening to get another win this week. But as far as the standings go, let's go ahead and get the standings. Let's pull them up right now. Okay. We got 3 teams at 4-0 right now. One of them being our very own resident Denver fan, Iggy. If you're out there, good job of being 4-0. Our team Prestige Crawler, who's been absolutely torching the league right now. This team is one of the highest scoring teams in the league, 932 points. Got a great setup. If you guys want a look at what we're facing in this league, we're going to post up some stuff along with everything else that we're posting up throughout the week. Should be coming out Tuesday for you guys to take a look there. And of course, Coach Craig, who, again, I tell you guys, take his advice. Make sure you follow him, because this is a guy that does his daily research, gives some of that advice out to you guys. Whether you follow it or not, that's completely up to you. But those are 3 4-0 teams right now, sitting at 1, 2, and 3. I, of course, am sitting at 3-1, suffered my first loss last week, and mainly because still trying to figure out the ins and outs of trying to learn fantasy on different apps and making sure that I get back into the habit of setting my lineups on a daily. So just to remind you guys, if you are playing fantasy, get up early when you get your coffee and set your lineup appropriately. Make sure you're watching who your matchups are against. In another league, which I'm threatening to lose again, sitting at 2-2. I'm going to be posting up the squad, but right now it's being led by Jalen Brunson and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. You guys be able to post up your teams, and we can go team for team and see how we can help each other get these wins for this season. Other than that, that about wraps it up for us this week. Again, not a lot this week. We got to the action. We addressed what needs to be addressed, but we're going to be posting up everything else. Winners for today: Minnesota at Boston, picking Boston. Washington at Indiana. Indiana favored by 11.5 points. I'd bet against the spread on that one. Dallas at Miami. Again, we said Dallas by 6. Los Angeles at Philadelphia. Clippers favored at Philadelphia by 1.5 points, which is a lot more about personnel available. Joel Embiid, I think he might play that game. It's not on the back-to-back for him. Clippers are taking that game, so I bet Clippers straight up. Cleveland at Toronto, that's a no-brainer. Clippers. Cleveland favored by 11.5 at home. Not betting against the spread on that one, but definitely betting Cleveland on that one. Hopefully they don't take their foot off the gas on that one like they have against other sub-500 teams. Brooklyn at Sacramento today. Sacramento favored by 9.5. The play of Cam Thomas has been absolutely crazy lately. And again, we question the defensive capability of Sacramento dropping off significantly from last year. Brooklyn coming in, playing at a decent clip. I believe that Brooklyn should be a good bet against the spread. I would take the Brooklyn against the spread, not Brooklyn straight up, because who knows what will happen in that game. A lot of games involving Brooklyn have come down to the last shot. So close losses, close wins, Brooklyn definitely in there. And that is our takes for today. If you guys have any questions, make sure to follow us up here. Follow me at 4F Apollo. But other than that, thank you guys for tuning in today, for checking in on us. Appreciate you guys. We out of here.